Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the eDiscovery channel. This is Tom. Yeah, I got the COVID O'Connor here in self-imposed quarantine in New Orleans, Louisiana. Luckily, I got it just as Jazz Fest was wrapping up. So,
Good.
so there you
But
go.
feeling okay now, right?
Still have some residual congestion and tightness in the chest. The lung stuff is
It's not joke. Yeah.
proving problematic. So I gotta go back to the doctor and make sure that's not, I'm getting the COVID pneumonia or the long COVID or the mid-range COVID or we don't know what COVID's all about, COVID. So
Right.
yeah, but yeah, definitely feel better than I did a week ago. Rocky back in Israel, you were just saying, or still in Israel?
Yep, yeah, still home for another couple weeks and then head over to the US. So
okay,
all good. And, I got my pre-COVID booster before heading to the US. So
good. You're gonna need it.
I'm ready for the wilds. Exactly.
Yeah, you get ready for the attacks. Yeah, and I'll apologize now in case you hear any banging in the background in the wonderful world. I'm sorry.
Are they taking down the tents still?
Tents are mostly down. The only thing that's left that I saw this morning when I got up is the main stage. But all the blues tent, the jazz tent, those are all down. No, some guys showed up to work on the house. I don't even know what they're doing. And these guys just show up and start banging and moving stuff around. I look up and there's like 3 guys on my porch with chainsaws,
Okay. As long as you have a house at the end, then we're good.
So, That's right.
Yeah.
So, and carrying on our tradition of totally ignoring our guests.
Yeah.
We are really happy to have with us today, Jason Velasco. Jason, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Tom, and I love to be ignored by such esteemed company. So I really.
So, for those of you who don't know, Jason, I guess you've been asleep for the last 25 years, not paying attention. Jason was actually the founder of 2 well-known entities in our business, Renew Data, right? Jason, you were one of the co-founders of Renew Data way back, going to the Wayback Machine, and also the EDJ Group, as I recall, several years later. And then over the years, you've worked for On Track, KPMG, Lighthouse, Deutsche Bank. I mean,
don't forget Merrill.
Yep.
Oh yeah, Rocky. Rocky likes that big M representation there.
It's Merrill Legal Services, not Merrill Financial. So
right. Yes.
Let's clarify.
Yes. Okay. And you're now the owner, CEO, founder of Kindato. Am I pronouncing that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, Kindato.
And doing consulting in the space, or what are you doing at Kindato?
Well, yeah, thanks. And by the way, guys, it's great to see you again. And Tom, I'm sorry to get to see you at Legal Tech. Rocky, I know we got to at least say hi in person, which was so great to actually see.
It was awesome to be together, actually. Yeah.
And so it's been really wonderful. So yeah, this is my 3rd startup. I'm really looking forward to and this is kind of year 1.5 as we're kind of building in this right now. And so Kindato is, basically, the name is actually kind of stems it all. So it comes from knowledge and intelligence through data, Kindato. So that's what we kind of framed it out. And what we're doing is we're taking all of our experience in eDiscovery, information governance, data management, technology development, building eDiscovery and corporate programs. And we're combining it all in terms of building an advisory and consulting practice. At the same time, also building some really innovative technology that's going to kind of really help organizations in the knowledge management sphere. So we can dig a little bit more as we talk about it, but that's what we're doing right now. We're providing services around knowledge. Go ahead, Dirk. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get back to that, but let's first figure out your whole information governance, eDiscovery, all that experience that you have. Let's go into the Wayback Machine and figure out where you actually came from. So,
well, I'm definitely what you would consider a journeyman, and I've been very blessed to have found the career that I've had, and have the people around me that's kind of guided me along that path. I came from, like most professional in the early eDiscovery days, from liberal arts. So, no technical background, no legal background. It's like, I ended up, I was teaching for a while. I was managing Babbage's, for those that remember Babbage's software stores, which is now part of GameStop or acquired by GameStop, in the DC area. And I was doing substitute teaching in my early 20s and didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. I worked on Capitol Hill for a couple of years. And so, I mean, I really just kind of wanted to learn and explore things. I ended up getting a job in the early days of data recovery at OnTrack before it was Kroll or anything like that. So like I got OnTrack, like disk manager days. And so I got a job in the shipping department and doing engineering services. And so
and this was in DC at the time?
This was right outside DC in Virginia. This was first in McLean and then in Reston. And that's where I started learning about data recovery, data structures, how to recover information, really looking at data at its core. And what I discovered that I was really, really good at seeing data patterns. So I would just see, content and screen and hexadecimal flying through, and I could pick up on patterns really well. And
yeah,
then,
I'm getting a vision of the Matrix here.
Matrix, yeah.
I know what
data
it is.
streams flying across.
But what I really think it is as I've gotten a little older, what I really discovered is that as a latchkey kid of the 70s, I love looking at screens and TV. So it's like, I'm very comfortable with my hand. I can actually see information. So that quickly led into doing computer forensics, doing chain of custody work, learning about defensibility. And I think this was like, for those that remember NK's version 1.2, I think was the first technology that I used in this area. And so I started doing that, and then I decided to start my own company, which basically led to Renew Data. We were doing data recovery, computer forensics. I started testifying at that point in time in cases around a lot of spoliation cases. It's like, was this data intentionally deleted, so that we can create that framework.
And what year are we talking here, Jason?
So this is back in the probably late 99, early 2000, or early aughts. And then what was really interesting is I started partnering and doing a lot of tape recovery and tape eDiscovery jobs, which kind of led to processing and bringing one of my other partners, Renewed, named Dan Gartner and that team. They had developed some technology to actually process backup tapes without having to process the native environment. So you didn't need the ArcServe or the Commvault backup system. You can just pop the tape in, pull the data
whatever
off.
it was.
Exactly. And so we were one of the first ones that could do that. Luckily, we were able to early on land the Enron backup tape project. So we actually went on site for 3 to 5 years processing all the backup tapes at Enron.
Any truth to the rumor that project is still ongoing?
No, I will comment or deny. I will not comment or deny or confirm any such facts. But what that really kind of did two things. As an entrepreneur, it helped me kind of understand how to grow a company from 25 people to 150 in less than 6 months, which it wouldn't have been for the people that we were responding. I mean, I was part of it. I was not the lead of this in any sort, but it was really kind of cool being part of that, and just the go entrepreneurial attitude. And it was the first time we started really looking at true petabytes of redundant information. We were processing daily backup tapes, right? So everything we had was redundant.
The incrementals were tiny, but you still had to go through all of it in order to figure out what was there. Yep.
Right. And so what we were doing is we were, the way that we framed it out with them is we would, for every backup tape, we would create 3 PST files for every particular user. Which we were able to apply some early indexing, which were responsive to certain keywords and parameters, ones that could not be ones that were not responsive, and then ones that couldn't be indexed. And so for every day, for every user, for every employee of Enron, we would process these out and ship them back so that the attorneys could go figure that out. And so, and it was a really cool thing. And we started looking, well, why is this all redundant? It's like, why the heck would everybody want to look at that? So, taking my forensic background and starting to look at the eDiscovery space in terms of deduplication, that's where we're like looking at, well, why don't we just shove all this stuff in a database and only put the incrementals, and really tie those together. And that was some of the cool technology that Renew Data was starting to build on top of the tape backup processing, but also the archiving and database engine that you could input all that information and only target what you really needed to do.
Awesome. So yeah, I mean, back in the day, Renew was the place that you went when you had any kind of tapes or any other
Yeah.
weird data formats. I mean, on track, yeah, but they were also a lot more expensive and
Oh, renew. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember I had 4 or 5 projects over the years that had, crazy tape stuff, and that's who we would call. It's renew.
And one of those, you guys know what it's like when you find a group of people and a team and a company that just kind of, they get it, they want it, and they're just
everyone moving in the same direction.
And yeah, there's pains, there's growing pains, there's internal issues, and but these are things that you work through as a company. But man, to be part of something like that, to grow a company like that, I think back on it, and to me, a lot of those people are still family. I mean, I talk to a lot of these people still to this day.
Right.
I went out to dinner a couple of weeks ago with a former project manager who started, entry level out of college, and now she's running a project management team for a large university, right? So, watching these people grow and all those type of things, I just think is really kind of a cool experience.
That's awesome. Were you still there when Jim Burns was there?
No, I was not. That was after
That was right after. So, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it was kind of, again, we had a vault, right? we actually had we built our data processing lab in a mountain in Austin, or a mountain, I should say, a hill in Austin. So it was completely, they had lasers in the ceiling, you had biometrics.
You have sharks? You have sharks?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course.
And it was
sharks with dynamite packs on their back. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly. And it was just a really cool experience. And, we did things like, because we knew that people would be coming in and we that was one of our primary sell efforts, right? Which your data is secure with Renew data. And, we'd have like boards and TVs on the screens of projects, what their statuses were, so that people could kind of keep track of the metrics. But every project had a code name. No, you would never see who our clients were. And outside of even our employees, many cases didn't know what our clients were unless they were looking at the data, because we consider that kind of, that was all of that chain of custody and defensibility stuff. We took that extremely serious from a security perspective. And it's, again, having been a part of that, is just really cool.
Yeah. And that's cool, because also it meant that all the people who went through Renew back in the early 2000s and now they are everywhere else, and they've got that fundamental approach to data that was taught to them at that point, that was really drilled in, and they've taken it now to all the different companies that they are. Because I mean, there's probably at one point, what was the highest number of employees that you guys got up to?
I think about 300.
300, oh, yeah. So that's like half of the industry at the time. So.
Yeah, a lot of developers, a lot of tape processing people. It was, it was pretty sizable organization. So we were hustling.
Cool. So at some point you decided to leave Renew, and then you went off and started the true journeyman efforts through a couple different places.
Yeah, I got to tell you guys, it's, again, part of my career has always been based around trying to find the right people and the right family and those type of things. And I remember as I was leaving Renew, as I was kind of walking out the door, a woman by the name of Hope Haslin, which I know you guys know, right? Yeah. And Hope has been a journeyman as well in terms of product and project management in our space. And she called me after we'd done some projects with Merrill Legal over the years at Renew. She's like, you got to come work for us. And so I was like, all right, well, let's look at that.
Let's talk. Yeah.
Let's talk. And so, we had a really great opportunity where I went over to Merrill Legal Services to help them build a solid project management team. That was the time they bought Lextranet. It was about the same time. With Neil Aresti's team and all that group out in Boston. Run that project management team, integrate that, as well as run and start and really kind of build a forensics team. I also had hot seat, all the trial work as well as part of that group.
Cool.
Exactly. And as well as the kind of the targeted partnerships, which is where it really helped us kind of look at some of the different technologies and partners around that area. It was great. I had a team of 70 people that were all over the globe. It was kind of cool. And one of the things that I have learned over time is, I wish I knew now what I could do, what I wouldn't and be able to do it back then. Cause I mean,
Right.
but the people are just, we're just so amazing. And the relationships I have at that organization, again, are critical. I mean, one of my best friends came out of that relationship. Right. And, going to a wedding pretty soon for those type of people. It's just super cool to do that. So Merrill was a really great experience. The crash really hurt when things, and we had to make some changes, and it was an interesting time, but I really enjoyed working with that team and really putting a consultative project management approach around that, tying together defensibility, the hosting side of things, again, processing large volumes of data. I had not really been that close before on the review side, which was really helpful for me because I was always on more of the left side of preserve, collect, process versus the review side. So that was a really great learning experience for me on that from the eDiscovery perspective.
That's cool. Yeah. Merrill for me also, like the people who I met there, the people who I worked with are still some of my very good friends today. It's amazing. My brother actually said back between like 2003 till 2000, probably 8 or 9, Merrill actually had probably the best all-star team. They just had no idea what to do with it.
They didn't know how to handle it.
Like all the people who were there at the time, when you look at it and you look at who are the leaders within our industry today on the service provider side, on the project management side, on the, even on the review software side, I mean, they all went through Merrill. Like,
yeah.
Pretty much everyone was there.
Really cool thing, right? Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I was just going to say that, and that's a common thread in our business, isn't it? I mean, you look back to the early days of Xerox and the Palo Alto Research Center, right? Where they basically invented networking, right? And didn't put a patent on anything. And it was a joke I used to tell when I was doing presentations. I said, somewhere in the basement of an old building at Stanford is a time machine that the guys at Park invented, and Xerox rejected it because it didn't make 50 copies per minute.
Right.
Just put it away.
Right.
It's really interesting how this technology will present itself, but the people who have a previous business model just can't wrap their, I mean, how many companies has Lexus bought, and software companies in our space have driven into the ground? Look at Summation being bought by 2 or 3 large companies who had no idea what to do with it. I mean, it just seems to be a recurring theme. And Merrill, you're right.
But acquisitions are hard. There's no doubt about it. And integrations are really hard. But it's really, again, it comes down to the people and whether you give those people the wherewithal to grow and to really take something and make it a rocket ship. If you give them that space, which I think now a lot of them have in the places where, I mean, look at what you've done, Jason. It's amazing over the last couple of years, but you need to have that space to really blow it out of the water. And if Merrill could have figured out the formula back then, I mean, they would have
ruled, right?
Ruled.
They had the technology in place,
Technology, and they had a sales team. I mean, think about that sales team that they had, right?
National sales team,
exactly.
And presence in corporate America, right? Exactly. As well as big law firms. I mean, they had everything going for them except the on-off switch.
Well, and
porch lights on, nobody's home.
But it was a great time. I mean, it's not. I mean, I think it was a situation more of they didn't even realize what they had, the talent that they had, and they tried the best to use everyone who was there, but it would have been really something cool if everyone could have kept the band together at the time.
I'll take it one step further, and I see it with many of the VC companies today. They don't understand the fundamental difference between the litigation process and world and other businesses. And they try to treat it like other businesses. If I hear the word EBITDA one more time from VC guys who come into our space, it's not about sales. It's not about sales. It's about a fundamental structure in our society, which is key to our society, and confidence in that process is key, and not understanding, in essence, their client base, how lawyers work, how they make decisions. Now, granted, it is somewhat arcane. It's like trying to figure out how the leprechaun works and gets all that gold in the pot at the end of the rainbow. It is a bizarre workspace and medieval in many senses. It's almost a guild with the way the states control things, and I'm preaching to the choir. You guys know, but coming into that new, especially if you've been successful, and I don't mean to pick on Merrill. Other people have done it, but you've been successful in a segment of that profession, like Alexis. You've sold legal research to those guys, so you think you've got the magic formula, and you don't. You don't.
Well, the way I look at it is, as an entrepreneur and innovator, you don't know until you try. So I don't have any hard feelings for any of those people.
Oh, no.
It's a great idea, right? In terms of, okay, well, if we can do that, now it all comes down to, and one of the things that I spend a lot of time now as an entrepreneur is looking at how to actually structure and create a successful business model, right?
Right.
I've been blessed to kind of work with some really good business mentors over the last couple of years that have really been helping me understand what is profitability, how does it play into it. The challenge with eDiscovery on the service side is that we all know that services businesses don't have a big valuation, and private equity and people that are willing to fund it
are looking for that. Right.
Yeah,
they're looking for it. Yeah.
Right. They're not looking for those type of companies that are going to be services, because the valuation's not there and the growth potential's not there. So what happened, especially.
Oh, no, go ahead. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
So what happened, especially during the Merrill days, is private equity was starting to really start looking at what we were doing, is that you saw a transition to, we're a services company helping our lawyers in our companies and helping them provide value to what we're doing, to now we're a service enabled by technology. We're adding that technology layer to it. And that's when we started to see some really innovations in terms of connecting platforms together, like the relativity model, like what Lighthouse did, integrating Nuix and relativity in terms of building a middleware component in order to, and we saw some really innovative things as people started looking at, how do you merge and combine those technologies, as well as build the value around the service level side, right? And so that was super interesting. And now we're seeing pure tech plays coming into it, which is, again, the fruition of what the private equity market is looking for, right? We're looking for pure technology, because that's where our 5 to 20Xs are going to come from. And so it's having been in this space now for 20 years and seeing that growth from pure services, we're gonna serve our clients, right? And to now we're just like every other tech vertical that's out there, which is now we're PE driven, right? And we're focused on building technology, including.
But it's a maturity. And that's not a bad. Well, for the lawyers in the room, it might go against some of that guild mentality and some of the entrenched. Tom, I'm calling you out on this one.
It's true.
It goes against some of the fundamentals of what legal has been about, as setting itself apart and setting the guides that think about it. A lawyer is an advisor, right? They're really there to advise, and when you're advising, you need to keep yourself kind of apart from the rest of the business, because otherwise you're just a business person, right? You need to have that other way of looking at it that creates not just the value, but creates the different perspective, because that is the value that a lawyer really is bringing to the table.
Yeah.
And just saying it's another business, right? Which it is now. Today, the business of law, look at what's happening on legal ops, right? It's the evolution of what technology has done to the legal industry that's really changing things. And I think, and again, we'll get in a couple minutes more into Jason, what you're doing right now. And but what you're doing, what I'm doing, it's all about taking it that next leap, the next step, taking all the knowledge, all the understanding that we've gotten through the technology side, and bringing it to law in a way that they can still advise, they can make it more efficient, they can focus less on the details around the technology and more on, okay, how do we actually use this to make ourselves better advisors to the clients? That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah.
So
The problem is, and this hasn't changed since the days of Merrill, that your audience is technology adverse. Okay, lawyers don't understand technology. They can say anything they want. The vast majority of lawyers do not understand technology, right?
Yep.
Rocky, you're laughing, but you deal with them, right? You've dealt with them. They don't, and honestly, they don't want to. And I think that's why there's a not so subtle shift that's been going on. Jason, you could address this. We're seeing more adoption of new technologies by corporations who understand technology, who trust technology, who have IT departments, who understand technology as a tool. Lawyers don't get that. They still don't get that. It's why you mentioned when we were talking, I think off camera, Jason, was it your father in AI?
Oh, my uncle. Yeah.
Your uncle, yeah. I mean, you mentioned AI to lawyers and the eyes glaze over, right? I mean, they know it's something they're supposed to know, but so's the internal combustion engine. But
but again, I think that comes down to why so many people in a eDiscovery and now legal ops role have managed to, I'm going to say, become powerful within a firm.
Oh, sure.
A legal department, because
they're the high priest.
They realize that they need it. They realize that they need someone who actually understands how that combustion engine works and can fix it when you forgot to put gas into it. But you gotta keep it going, and that's why it's become so valuable to be in these types of roles, and especially as a consultant. I mean, because you're able to look at it and say, here's what you really need. Here's what the technology that you're going to need. Here's the different pieces that you need to put together.
Jason, I mean, tell me if you see this. I mean, my role most often is as an interpreter. I'm interpreting between the lawyers and the technicians, wherever they may be.
I find that to be the case when I'm dealing with particular matters and issues like casework, right? Because again, I'm trying to explain what does double deletion mean, and what are tombstones in Microsoft 365, and
why do I need positronic thrusters on this case? I don't get it.
Exactly. And for the most part, they don't care or want to care, because what they need. What I have done, and this has been the failure, I think, in maybe not failure, but this is one of the things I've had to adapt to is as I've grown and matured in my career, which is when you're dealing with people that have the responsibility of making decisions, people that are strategic in their thinking, they do not care at all about how the sausage is made. They don't, right? Yep. Even though this is where we spend all of our time making the sausage, and
we're out back making the sausage,
right. And we've built the best combustible engine. They don't care. They just want to know how to get to Poughkeepsie, right? That is the only thing they want to know, and what's the best route. And so, so that's one of the things I've had to adjust to, is learn much more around top-down communication and change management and creating change that's going to enable those people to do their jobs better. And that's where the value of what we do comes in, right? So how can we provide value to those strategic thinkers? And those are the ones that are paying for the work that we do.
So speaking of strategic thinking, let's move on to one of your next stops that you made along the way, which was EDJ. And that was, first of all, an incredible group of people coming together.
Right.
Yeah. So what's the story there?
It's like that's like that's like
Justice League of America. It was
Silk Sonic of today's age. So,
exactly. So that was an interesting time, and I know you guys know Greg Buckles. I mean, and Greg, God bless him, man. He is, talk about a journeyman with the belief and ethical structure of the right arrow. I mean, he's the kind of person that whenever I have any type of, when I never need a compass in terms of kind of approach and truth, he's the kind of person I talk to, right? Yep. And he holds nothing back, which I adore. Greg and I have known each other from the early EDRM days, right? So you know that I know Tom, you and I, and worked with George and Tom Geldman.
Yeah.
Rocky, I know you were part of that group in terms of kind of the early building of the EDRM and how do we create, what was the model, how do we define it, all those type of things, which is a really cool experience that I was again very blessed to participate in. But I'd worked with Greg, over time. We were both kind of Texans, so he had come from El Paso Energy, and so we knew a lot of the same people in the Texas market. And then there was Barry Murphy, who was a analyst at Gartner that covered the email compliance market. So we understand kind of the corporate side of how data is stored. And we were like, well, they started doing the eDiscovery journal because they wanted to be able to communicate and have a very independent voice. That wasn't tied to kind of any
vendor,
any concept of pay for play or kind of an approach of we're going to be independent, we're going to be agnostic in terms of technology, service providers. We're not going to take money and give opinions based on our sponsorship. And that was kind of a really
people do that.
Again, I will neither confirm nor deny any approach.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked to hear there's gambling going on in this establishment.
Exactly. So, so what we wanted to do, and the objective was, and we talked to people about this. We did a market assessment. We went to corporations, we went to other law firms, and we said, so if we created an independent analyst organization that could really give you an insight on, what technology, what their capabilities, what their functions are, where they fit into it, where they fit into the EDRM spectrum, what is their speeds and feeds, and really kind of at the deepest level, almost like, kind of almost an early RFP as a service type of approach. Would you guys pay for it? And everyone said, yeah, it's a great idea. And so we actually built this thing called the EDJ Matrix, where we actually engaged and we gave people the opportunity to input their technology features and functions, their service model. What do you cover as part of the overall EDRM member concept? We would validate it. And we were trying to create a kind of an early Yelp so people can then put commentary, and opinions around that in a moderated way. We weren't going to allow people to troll other companies. We would press on it and have people, and we tried to put that behind a paywall and give people the access to it from a buyer perspective. And we were really trying to enable people like us who are buying eDiscovery services and technology an opportunity to say, let's cut through the chase and make good decision on what these people can do and what other buyers are saying. And so we built it. It was really cool. It was Herculean effort in terms of building this big database of information. And then we realized that no one was willing to pay for it.
A great idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea. So, and again, Greg really supported all of our efforts with a lot of his consulting and advisory work as we were trying to build this out. And again, it was one of those things where we evaluated the market incorrectly. I don't think it was a big enough market to really adopt something that could support the team that we had. And we tried to build consulting services. We brought Babs Deacon on, for those that remember Babs, to do some consulting work. We brought Mickey Tomlinson.
Mickey,
and we brought some really good marketing people. We were doing conferences. We tried everything to kind of figure out what was the right approach.
Right.
And nothing really stuck that really felt the right way. Right. So we decided to kind of pack it up, all with love and grace as much as possible, as you kind of break up that super group band. Greg and I talk to Greg often, probably every 2 to 3 weeks easily, as a friend and a colleague, and some of the things that he's working on, as well as, I haven't touched base with Barry in a while, but he's on my list of people to kind of reach out, because I know he's at Amazon now. So he's as some people say, blessed to be out of the industry. And so he's not in this eDiscovery space anymore.
Yeah, he's into world domination now. So.
Exactly. So I literally, as this was coming unglued, I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do. Right. I knew I had this experience in consulting, and managed services and eDiscovery. And I through a recruiter, I discovered, this company called Lighthouse, right? And they were pretty small at the time. not small, they're mid-sized.
They were decent size for where they were, but they
Right.
didn't really have that national presence.
Right, they're very much a regional player looking to get bigger.
Yeah.
They gotten some investment to kind of grow it. They had built some proprietary technology around middleware, integrating Nuix and Equivio and Relativity. And I'm sorry, Rocky, for some reason it blew my mind for a second.
Video, I've heard of them. Yeah.
Have you?
So long ago now.
Yeah.
And so they were.
Whatever happened to
10 years
them?
ago. It's 10 years ago. Come on.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm getting to the point now I'm forgetting more than I remember.
Right.
As I get older. And they were doing some really innovative things, and they wanted to start looking at a consulting, building a consulting organization that would support that. And so I came on board to help, kind of, at that early to mid stage startup, and really enjoyed the model. They had done a lot of things on the project management side, which I really liked, which is building a pod-based consulting, consultative project management around their cases, which I adored. Here's one of the few things that I enjoyed, and it's something that I adopted at Merrill when I had the project management team there, is typically I find in a lot of service providers, the single point of failure is always going to be in the overburdened, overworked project management organization. Right? You've got usually a single person or a small
The superstar, right?
You've got the superstar and a bunch of people that are learning to be kind of superstars or may not be capable of being superstars.
Right.
And that person is overworked 80, 90 hours a week, and they burn out, and then they move on to the next job or get moved out of the industry. And I'd seen it over and over and over again. And so part of what to me, the consultative project manager approach around the eDiscovery piece was, what you need to do is find subject matter experts in key areas, get them to align across different areas, people that are focused on review and have the specialization there, people that are socialized in consulting or data
analytics, processing, yeah.
Exactly. You bring those at a leadership level, and then you build a matrix organization of project managers, PMIBAs, those type of people that are service driven, but at the same time understand project management strategies that can fill the gaps in and make sure that there's someone that's always accountable for what's going on within the organization or that particular case. And we all know that eDiscovery and litigation support is a 24/7 job. I mean, when there's litigation, all bets are off, and we're working Sundays at 11 o'clock. Vacations are being canceled, and that has happened more times than my family has ever cared to deal with. And I know we've all been there, right? And that's just what we do. And you can't do it every day. Not every day can be a fire drill, and you can't grow that around.
You burn out.
Exactly.
You burn out. And you burn it. And typically it's the really good ones that like you said are overworked, are burning out left and right because there's not that approach. There's not that overall structure. It's just they're good, let's just keep throwing stuff at them.
Exactly. Right. And then, all right, now you're accountable for it. Do it. And
Right. With no raise, of course.
Exactly. So. and it's not retainable, right? You can't keep doing that. So I really enjoyed the Lighthouse model, what they were doing. They had some core clients, large corporate clients that they had been working with over the last few years. And so, it was really great working with some really cool people there. Namely, one of the people I loved working with is the guy who was running the advisory practice, and a guy named Chris Dahl. I don't know, Chris, Rocky. I know that.
I know Chris very well.
Yep. I mean, just an innovative, well thought through, well spoken, and he's one of the hidden treasures of our space, right?
Yep.
And people that know
and
him,
he likes to. You know why he's so good? Because he likes to stay hidden.
Yeah, I agree. And I started adapting that methodology further in my career, but we'll get to that later.
Right.
And what a great team. And that's when I started looking at how do we build playbooks. And we actually looked at building an eDiscovery eDiscovery maturity model, which is looking at what are the core tenets of what organizations are, what are the common elements that these organizations have, ranging from the people that are doing kind of the early stage or no eDiscovery all the way up to your Pfizer's and GE's capabilities that know every penny they're spending on every document that gets sent out of the door, right? And so then there's somewhere in between is the right way. Not everyone needs to be a Pfizer, and not everyone needs to be the startup that doesn't even know what litigation is, right? So, and really looking at those common elements and building consulting services around that to help people right size where they need to be based on their profile as an organization. And so that was really cool. And I loved working with that particular team, and just really enjoyed it. And then my buddy Michael Epstein, who I'd hired him at Renew, and then I'd hired him at Merrill, and then he calls me up and says, "Why don't you come over to Deutsche Bank? I need help building an eDiscovery architecture team." I was like, "Okay, in-house,
Yep,
right?"
let's
And
do it.
so I left Lighthouse, and it was a really, really hard decision because they were really on a significant growth trajectory at that point in time. But one of the things that I felt at that time, I was in my mid-30s. This is probably, or my mid-40s, I should say. I was really suffering from significant imposter syndrome at that point in time. Which is like having gone from, again, a history major to now, really kind of supposedly being a thought leader in eDiscovery, right? In terms of really driving strategy.
Right. And it's like, where'd that come from? Right.
Where did that go? And so I really felt I needed to get a different perspective, and the opportunity to be in-house behind the scenes and really getting a feel for what an organization really looks like really was something that was important, felt I was missing in my career at that point in time. And so I jumped at the chance, and I left Lighthouse and joined the Deutsche Bank architecture and engineering team that Michael had been building. And again, a lot of that core talent came out of the experiences that we had. We had John Wilson, who's now the CISO of Haystack. We had a gentleman by the name of Danny Levitt, who was one of the key project managers
At
at
Merrill.
Merrill. Solid, what a great person that was. We had Quinn Greger from Orcatech and EMAG. Bob Pacheco, who had been in the consulting area, who's now a CTO at a large university. It's really amazing, kind of that team, that dream team that kind of came together. I'm sure I'm forgetting people that were part of that team, but being part of that and looking at what all the things that we could do at a corporate organization was really kind of cool. And so I really enjoyed that experience. And I was there for about 3 years as a full-time contractor, dedicated contractor to doing that. And we implemented technology. We tried to build best practices, take a lot of the crisis out of eDiscovery, and really implement a lot of change management side of things. That was a cool experience. And kind of seeing where that organization is now from eDiscovery and information governance, where they're at today, I was really happy to be kind of that, and one of the components and the foundation of seeing that kind of come to fruition.
Yeah, it's cool. It's amazing how many of us have done that in terms of the, been a consultant for 15, 20 years, or maybe not a formal consultant, but have been on the provider side, and you end up as an advisor and a consultant and talking to corporations and talking to law firms, but then, same thing that I did. It was I want to have that corporate experience. I want to, that's not the career path that I want to choose long-term, mm-hmm. But, how important is it to be able to see, when I tell them X, Y, Z, right? I shouldn't really be saying that, because now that I'm in it and I really understand what's going on, it's really tough to try to implement X, Y, Z. So maybe, think about other ways to go about it. And it's amazing. I've talked to a ton of people who've done that, and, done 2 to 5 years within a corporate environment to get that experience, and then gone on to do some pretty amazing things. So let's talk about that pretty amazing thing that you're up to right now. So yeah.
So I've been, after I left Deutsche Bank, I was doing some kind of independent consulting. I did some work with FINRA, so they were one of my long-term projects that I was doing over there. So it's interesting seeing both sides of the regulated right. From the financial services side. And then after COVID hit, it's like, okay, what do I do next? And I wasn't really sure. And we got a call from a client saying, we need help. It was a corporate organization. We need help. Just want to learn how to use advanced eDiscovery. It's like, we're paying for these E5 licenses. We don't really need an eDiscovery provider to do initial calling, because most of the stuff we're doing is just trying to kind of either internal investigations or just basic ECA work. Can you teach us how to use it? And we were like, sure. and because I actually bought my own E5 license on my own to start playing with it and start looking at some of the automation capabilities that were coming out. And because, I mean, if you, as a collection specialist, as someone that understands preservation and really digs into that, I need to know what's going on as early on where the source of the information is. And advanced eDiscovery was really, right there, because that's where, if people move to the cloud and adopt M365, this is the source of truth for all unstructured data and in future structured data in the Azure stack as well. So, we were really cool about that. Michael then joined me and we started looking at automation and how do we create automation in M365 using some of the PowerShell scripting and now Graph APIs as they've been coming out. There's all kinds of cool automation things that we can do around that. And so we started building an advisory practice around how, can we help step up and be an outsourced eDiscovery general, much like what your practice is, Tom, which is looking at, we're not looking at the Deutsche Banks of the world because they have established eDiscovery people and teams and things like that. But there's a pretty solid SMB market of people out there that just have some need for eDiscovery or information governance work, but they really don't need a full-time person and they don't want to have to pay for the crisis situation every time a litigation pops up. So it goes back to that eDiscovery maturity model, which is what's good enough, right?
They're ready to be proactive, but not ready enough that they're going to actually bring it in-house.
That's exactly right.
And the talent, quite frankly, I mean, most of them can't afford to bring it in-house because there's not a whole lot of talent that really truly understands this stuff yet. So.
And if they do, they're pretty expensive. So part of it is almost like a fractional eDiscovery General or, VEG, eDiscovery General, VEDG. And so I guess that's a new role. We'll craft that one. I'm going to patent that.
Exactly.
Trademark. And so I think, and we've found some pretty good client base there, and especially in SMB, and then now we're doing a lot of focusing on institutional and education markets. So we're building a whole EDU and focusing on that EDU vertical, because one of the things I discovered around EDU is, especially the public institutions, they have a ton of open records requests that coming in, and it's tangential and same workflow as eDiscovery, but holy shkamoli, they've got to deal with unstructured data, communication, workflow, analysis of data, and they have to respond to this, and they have to, right? And there's interesting strategy around that, and in terms of you want a response because you have to respond, but you also don't want to be too responsive, and there's a whole bunch of cool strategy around that. So, and then there's PI issues, and that really has been driving some of the workflow and technology that we've been building.
Yeah. So what can you give an example of some of the stuff that you've been building?
So yeah, we're really looking at, we're getting actually ready to release our first kind of our first software package, the Condado software package, which is built around the open request process. So what it'll do is it'll automate the process, which will take someone from a form. So Rocky, if you want to file an open request for all the information around Jason Velasco, that's related to all the eDiscovery work that I've done for the last 10 years, you can file that request through a web form. It automatically kicks off a whole workflow in Microsoft Teams. They'll get a notification and an email, and then we'll use adaptive cards and similar technology to actually communicate. I can now assess what that request comes in, triage it to the appropriate resources within the organization, whether they're, and as the eDiscovery general for the organization, I get those requests, I triage the case, I look at the unstructured data, the search terms, then we have a whole bunch of automated queries that we built within Advanced, so we can actually kick those filters off, do the early case assessment and help them kind of move that. But also for all the other departments, like in our group that we work, one of the groups that we work with, they have a police department, they have HR, they have a lot of other different sources of information that they have to get access from, finance and procurement, of course, as a public institution. And so, it manages that whole thing as well as closes it, manages the communication, and allows you to have all the automated reporting so that you can deliver back to the state or whatever the regulatory authorities are. So that's coming out in July. So that'll be our first major technology that we have coming out that we have on top of some of the other things we're trying to build.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Right.
and really focused on the Teams environment, right? I mean, Rocky, you know this.
Right.
Have you been at Microsoft? Teams is the place where people work now,
Yep.
right? And that's what we wanted to do, is bring that to them without having to get another piece of software, something that is enabled within the place where they want to work.
Yeah, it's amazing. I was just having a conversation 2 days ago with someone, and we were talking about how, you know, the concept, especially in eDiscovery and governance now, the concept of a document in most corporations is no longer a concept. You know, yeah, sure, you still have Word documents, you still have PowerPoints and all that, but it's so much about collaboration. It's so much about, you know, when I'm working on something, it's not I'm working on it within a Word document. It's I'm sharing it within Teams. I'm working back and forth. We're communicating about it. We're commenting in the document. We're sharing different, you know, from everything from using Fluid to you know, using the various different Teams features to.
Right.
It's such a different world than it was even 5 years ago.
So explain that to the judge who held that
Just wants to, yeah,
a
exactly.
pointer to a collaboration document is not an attachment in an email.
Yeah, we're not going there.
Yeah, we are. That's the problem.
No,
the problem
Above
is
my pay grade, Tom, above my pay grade.
well, but that's really our problem, isn't it?
Yeah,
The technology is
reading
reading what the lawyers understand. Yeah.
That for sure. That specific opinion, I think, was a little bit troublesome. But also, if you read it, it actually is very specific, like most legal opinions are, to the situation at hand. I think some assumptions were drawn from it in terms of the broad, you know, links are not attachments ever. But it is a problem because it did set some precedents in that, yeah, that it's going to be a lot harder to explain why some of these things should be considered attachments. So, but yes, it's a tough one.
I don't worry about it as precedents. I worry about it as a thought process, that it illustrates how some attorneys and or judges are thinking about this technology. And it goes back to the point we had earlier, that lawyers don't necessarily understand this. And it's incumbent on us to explain that to them.
But let me give you an example, Tom, because I think this is really important in some of the ways that Condado is being really kind of early adopters and supportive of this initiative. One of the things that we've learned around that is most people do not know how to use Teams, right? All they know it is, I've talked to several people, Teams is a great video conferencing.
Video conferencing. It's the same as Zoom, right?
It's exactly right. And they have no idea really what it does. And so as part of the initiatives that we're doing and this is part of that change management thing, is you can't go too big too soon with people, because again, that's what we try to do at EDJ. These are iterative changes. So one of the things that we've been building with one of our clients right now, and this is a product that we're delivering, is a Teams Foundation program, where we're going to actually spend a year crafting the policies around Teams from both an administrative perspective, helping them understand that, but also building training materials for, this is for an academic institution. How do you use Teams? How do you store it? How do you create links? What is a loop? What are these type of things? What is OneDrive? What is OneDrive versus Teams, SharePoint? All those type of things in a very piecemeal way. Now we have, now within this framework, we're going to be able to have an eDiscovery defensibility playbook around where the data sources are, right? So I'm actually, through foundation up, from ground up, I'm actually creating a significant amount of change at the policy side, but by giving the people who are in the departmental level and the working level and the tactical level really the opportunity to drive that and understand what they're doing. But we're going to get all the wisdom and knowledge and understand the patterns to help understand where things are, right? So that's
it's essential, and unfortunately, too many companies are not taking that approach.
Exactly,
it's a problem.
Exactly,
but unfortunately, we are running up against time, so we're going to kick it over to a couple of rapid fire questions, if that's okay with you, Jason.
Sure.
So,
or even if it's not,
yeah, we'll still ask them.
yeah.
So let's start with something nice and easy. Chicago or New York pizza?
So I'm from Chicago.
Yeah.
So,
But you've spent many years in New York, so.
and I spent many years in New York. I would,
See, got
you
him.
know, it's situational. I would probably say let's put it this way. Over the last 20 years, I have eaten more New York pizza than I have Chicago pizza.
Fair
Do you
enough.
regret that?
I do not, I do not
Okay.
regret it. I've enjoyed every single bite of both of those.
Good. Are you a beach or snow vacation?
Oh, beach. Yeah,
Good man.
yeah. I went to Stratton, Vermont for Christmas this year or holidays, and you know it was all right. I actually injured myself on the first day and spent the next 3 days in
the lodge?
bad pull muscle. Yeah, it was awesome. It was 3 days. Of,
best vacation ever, right? And before we started the call, we were talking about some good literature. So let's go with, what's your favorite book?
I would say the one that I'm reading, that I read probably the most at this point in time, quite candidly, I love Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Just the gonzo journalism and just the pure energy of that of Hunter at that time and capturing that moment. You know, because I'm in between. I'm basically I'm the tail end of that generation of that perspective, right? Of transitioning from the rebellious baby boomers to more of the what I call the Reagan-esque baby boomers, right? And so it just kind of seeing the exclamation point on that generation from a historical perspective is always been very important to me.
You know that book started as an assignment that Hunter undertook for Sports Illustrated, who just recoiled in horror when he submitted the manuscript. And then he shopped it around and got Rolling Stone to do the original article, or I think they put it into a couple of segments, and then he blew it out into a book. But
Which, speaking of
two paragraphs,
right? Speaking of Rolling Stones, Tom, why don't you take over?
My rapid fire question is an easy one, which most people get wrong. Beatles or Stones?
So
almost as bad as the pizza question.
I would probably say I'd go with the Beatles because we're, I'll tell you the catalog. They changed. Beatles changed everything. Now the Stones are still there. They changed a lot, and Sticky Fingers is probably one of the best albums ever created, right? And just that point in time, especially because they were still on heroin and they were dark, and there was just again points in times of beautiful.
Allegedly.
Yes, of course.
I've seen the movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that one someone might confirm.
Yeah. So, I love music history, by the way. So I actually spend a lot of time thinking about things like that in terms of Stones and Beatles. Cool. And after Get Back, I spent about 2 months in the Beatles kick. I'm now in a Led Zeppelin mode because I just saw Jason Bonham Led Zeppelin Experience at the Beacon Theater in New York a couple weeks ago, which was kind of cool. It was like a rock concert, guys. I felt like I was at a rock concert,
right?
And it was so cool. And then I think I'll go back to the Stones afterwards. That's my next one.
All right, cool. Well, that brings us to our last question. We warned you about this ahead of time. If you could spend a day with anybody from our profession, living or dead, who would that person be, and what would you do with them?
So, as you asked that, I really spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I'm going to give you both a living and dead. Yes. So we'll start with the unfortunately passed, which is Browning Moran. I mean, Browning, I'd spent a lot of time with him at Sedona and EDRM throughout the days, and I know you had a very deep relationship with him, Tom, much more so than I would ever do. But what a joy! What an absolute joy to be around every time. I mean, he would always have a smile on his face, and he would always give me a wonderful quip, and always make sure that he spent time with me every time he saw me, right? And whereas I was, just the knowledge that he had and the experience that he had and just the ability to share all of that, I mean, it really enhanced my ability to actually talk about eDiscovery in a way that other people explained it. I would, everything that he took, I was a sponge and was able to bring that back to the clients and the people that I was working with, other thought leadership stuff. So he was really the foundation of my eDiscovery theoretical and practicality of being that translator between legal and technology.
Cool. All right.
What would I do with him? I would love to be in a private classroom with him for a whole day, just
Wow.
to kind of just listen to him and ask questions.
One of the greatest memories I have with him was a recurring thing, but when I would go to San Diego and visit, he used to love to go over to this little fish and chip shop over on Point Loma. And it was just a little out of the way joint, and we would go over there and get some fish and chips and then blow the next 2 hours talking about, everything under the sun. He was such a great person, like you said. His enthusiasm for things, not just in our profession, but for all sorts of things. It was just a great experience. And that's, if I have a recurring memory, it's those phone calls from him in the car, and then sitting there on the dock in Point Loma in San Diego, eating fish and chips, watching the ships and in the sun. It was great. It was great.
Yep.
Well, Jason.
Well, hold on. I want to do my living one.
You got a living. There you go.
Really important one. So,
all right.
I would probably say that person would probably be Skip Walter. For those that know Skip from the 10X days and a few other things. I've been blessed, absolutely blessed for the last couple of years to, I was really looking for a combination of really for a business mentor, someone who'd been through building a technology, understanding both professional services side, and how to apply that, and for those that know Skip, he spent most of his career really applying artificial intelligence and to knowledge management theory, as well as how it intersects with business valuations, right? So I've literally been in probably my MBA grad school with Skip over the last couple of years.
Yep.
And the knowledge that he's given me just on knowledge management. I've created a model for both technology and professional services based on his knowledge management model, right? I've been applying things like stratified system theories to to a technology approach, right? He's helping me understand really what how knowledge is actually built into the cultural organization around that. But he's also done things simply as, what are the different profitability models of a business, right? What are the things that you need? What are the things that you need to do as a professional services people? And again, I never knew any of this stuff before.
Yeah, and he's just my career. The way that he tracks knowledge himself, is just insane. Have you ever seen how he reads a book or on his Kindle and how he the notes that he takes and how he references everything? It's amazing. You can ask him a question, what you think is a simple question that maybe he'll give you 2-3 sentences, and he will send you back an email that is 8 pages long, cross-referenced with footnotes. It's amazing. And hopefully you've had a chance, or if you haven't, then you should make the effort to go sit out on his porch, drink some wine in the big red rocking chair, and just enjoy the view and talk. It's really amazing to spend time with him.
And that's exactly what I would be doing with him, right? Which is that. So
excellent.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. We really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you in person, hopefully sometime in the next few months.
Absolutely. Yep. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing, continue with what you guys are doing. Rocky, I'm really excited about seeing where you're going with Alterni and the technology you're doing. Switchboard model, as I learned from Skip, that's what we're talking about there.
There you go.
So pretty excited about all that work. So thank you, Tom. Thank you, Rocky. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Thanks. You. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time on the eDiscovery channel.